Hello and welcome to the Otaku Host Club. My name is Amelia and I'll be your host today. On episode 2, we will be deep diving into the works of Masaaki Yuasa as part of a continuation of episode 1. We will mainly be discussing Kaiba and how it relates to Yuasa's other works. Please enjoy your stay at the Otaku Host Club.
Yeah, you should be recording it.
Yeah. Alright, so it's recording now. That way it's just on. Think about it.
Yeah, just keep it on and edit it down. That's the way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure.
Where do you get your news? Anime News Network?
Yep.
You know, I followed them on Twitter. I should probably turn on notifications because I literally never even get any Anime News Network on my feed, which is the point of Twitter. Oh, they did. Oh, I know. I'm pretty sure, and we can look this up if we want to. I'm pretty sure that they canceled Comiket because of COVID-19.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
Isn't that insane?
Well, I mean, everything's getting canceled. I don't think that's any more or less insane than any other large-scale event getting canceled.
No, but it's Comiket.
I mean, it's a bummer, yeah, but
have they ever
everything under the they've been doing.
You know what I think is crazy is Comiket is specifically for doujins, right?
Yeah.
And it's harder to get into than our anime conventions. I was just thinking about that. How many people go to Comiket and it's just for doujins?
Yeah,
and how many people go to anime conventions? For all of it, for every aspect of it.
Yeah, but doujins are the spicy stuff, right? If you want to get that hot shit, that's where you got to go.
That is true.
I have to imagine that it's harder to get into because competition must be fierce, right? In comparison to what we would see at Otakon or Katsucon, when it comes to Artist Alley, because it's not necessarily as focused, I feel I don't know. We've never applied to Artist Alley. I have literally no idea what the back end is like. So, but sometimes I get the sense that it is not nearly as focused, or there's a larger variation in quality of work and consistency of work.
I mean,
I have to imagine that this giant doujinshi, whatever, however you pronounce it, this giant doujin fest in Japan must have, everybody in the whole country is going berserk trying to get in on this thing, and it's the biggest event for everyone. So everyone is bringing their A game to try to get in.
Right. Well, they pushed back the Summer Olympics, so it only makes sense that they would do this too.
The Summer Olympics in Tokyo?
Yep.
Yeah.
Dang.
I think Morgan and I are going to push back our trip too. We were going to go in August, but now I think we will go in November.
Oh, November's pretty though.
Pretty cold. Bummer.
It is cold, but
Wait, when was the cherry blossom?
now.
It's now, right?
Yeah. I wonder. So what I'm actually curious about. Originally, Morgan and I were going out there to see the new Evangelion movie, which is supposed to come out in July, and then we pushed our trip back to August. And I was Morgan doesn't really care about seeing this random anime movie. That's just me. So I didn't want to raise a stink about it. And I was just kind of crossing my fingers well, maybe it'll still be in theaters by the time we make it over there and then I can see it. But is this going to delay the release of the new Evangelion movie in a manner that, it must not delay it that much, or if it gets delayed, it'll only be delayed insofar as it'll be dropped the moment that theaters are open and it's able to be released is what I imagine. So probably November will still be too late to try to see it in theaters.
I feel that depends on how much they've already completed and how much they need to get done on production, because ReZero, I would assume, had at least a bunch of it already completed enough to continue with their second season release, but pushed it back a whole like another season, which is like 3-ish months. So it could be the same for Evangelion. Maybe they're also 3 months back, and we'll push it back again, and then you'll be right in the target air window.
But that would be pretty sick. It would make me happy if that's how it played out. I find it hard to believe that they still have such a large amount of work to complete on this movie that's supposed to be dropping so soon. But I guess isn't that supposed to be like the story of anime in general, that everything is kind of running right up to the last second? And maybe that's just the story of movies and film in general, and television in general, and I just don't know because I'm not involved in these industries at all.
My Hero Academia, wasn't that postponed, pushed back?
Was it?
I didn't even know it was still going on. Somebody told me it was.
Yeah. I just watched.
Know.
Yeah, I just watched the most recent episode on Saturday.
Oh yeah, I thought there were only going to be 12 episodes.
No, there's the whole school. There's the whole school cultural festival arc after the overhaul arc.
Oh, okay. Whoops.
You would watch the overhaul arc and you're like, well, it doesn't get any better than this. I guess I'll stop watching now. Fuck the rest of this season. Well, and maybe this leads into our discussion of things we are currently watching, right? Yes, I watched the most recent episode, and I've been watching on a weekly basis as they go through the cultural fair arc, which I have not read ahead in the manga, so this is all brand new to me. I did think the cultural festival, whatever it is, the cultural festival stuff was entertaining.
Bunkasai.
Was that what it's called?
Yeah, in Japanese.
Oh, word. Well, I don't speak any Japanese. So. The only Japanese I know is going Zawa, Zawa, Zawa. And a lot of my friends think that's really funny. So that's all I got.
That should be your ringtone or your voicemail.
Ooh, yeah, that would be good. I think ringtone would be good, like foreboding phone call. I'll set that up. Yeah, cultural festival stuff was entertaining. I thought Gentle was a pretty reasonable, interesting villain. They did a good job of balancing the fact that Overhaul ostensibly is so difficult and not exactly overpowered, but is like arguably like one of the strongest villains that our crew has faced yet, and it's very difficult. And how are they going to beat this guy? And it's like a miracle that they won. And there's a little, when you get in situations like that, you're stuck a little bit with this, where do you go from there? How can the stakes get any higher? How can the challenge get any higher? How can the walls get higher? And there's not always an easy answer. And I thought that the Gentle and the cultural festival did a good job of kind of sidestepping that issue, because Gentle was not really, he was not a particularly difficult villain from a strength standpoint, and the stakes were not particularly high, but it was emotionally endearing to watch all this, right? It was like just difficult enough, there to have a interesting battle and have a little bit of strategy. And they did a good job of kind of building the emotional context of why Midoriya was emotionally invested in the cultural festival, and why he didn't want Gentle to mess it up, and Gentle, why Gentle really wanted to mess it up. And I thought that it made for a good story, even if it was not like the most adrenaline pumping or the most exciting per se. It still had emotional resonance. Where they did not do well was the dancing part. And I remember I sent a group text to everybody about that too when I saw that episode, because I do think that in this world where every hip anime show has a dance scene that is particularly fluid and well animated, and everybody, you know, memes the shit out of it and copies it, and we see people doing the dances at Otakon and Katsucon and whatever. I thought the dance parts and the song parts in My Hero Academia really fell flat, and they weren't bad, but I felt like for a major franchise that has in the past thrown a lot of effort and energy into great action sequence and kinetic movement animation, that this was kind of a missed opportunity to bring out a different angle of My Hero Academia. But also, and I mentioned this in the text too, maybe there's just a sense that that is not really the point of My Hero Academia, or that's not the target audience. You know, we're not looking, the target audience is not people that are really into dance sequences. It's people that are into, you know, fighting spirit in battles, and so there's really no reason to put a lot of focus on this dance scene because the audience won't care about that so much. So I can understand that angle. I think that's fair.
I
But
feel like sometimes they well, I'm gonna assume with My Hero Academia they probably paid different animators to animate that, and maybe those animators, you know, weren't as up to par with, you know,
yeah,
dance sequences.
when you say it like that, it does feel like this whole season has been bringing the B team, because I felt there was a meaningful step down in animation compared to previous seasons. And that is not, I say that not because I am some great critical eye of animation, because I'm not. I say that because in previous seasons there have always been moments like, for example, Deku versus the fire and ice guy in the school battle. There's always been moments where I felt like, oh, the animation here is really stepping out. You know, like this is a really good looking sequence. This, you know, stylistically and fluidly, like looks really good. And there were not moments like that in this. Well, I guess there were. The climax of Deku versus Overhaul was kind of in that territory, but it is eclipsed in my mind by the slideshow of Lemillion versus Overhaul, and I really thought the slideshow sequence was a strategic error on their part. I thought that really could have been handled much better. It was a poor judgment call.
I haven't seen the dance episode that you're talking about, but I can relate that with an anime that I have seen. I really liked Bang Dream. You can watch it on Aniplex. It's just about a group of girls who form a band, kind of like K-On, but less like endearing and more just like fun. I don't know. K-On has such like a place and time in my heart and like that, so it's like a little bit more nostalgic for me, like talking about K-On, and like I really hold K-On in higher regard than Bang Dream, but I also really like Bang Dream. And Bang Dream is, for the most part, and like yourself, I'm not a great eye for animation, like yeah, I'm just not, but it's for the most part like 2D animated, and then specifically for the band sequence, they 3D animated it, which I felt like was like completely out of touch with the entire series thus far up until that point where they're playing in the band, because you know, you could have spent a little bit more time and effort animating something in 2D and getting the nuances of the movements right, like in K-On, but instead you decided to 3D animate it, and the movements were just so clunky that it like brought less feeling to their performance. Right. And then later on after the first season, so like for the most part, the first season is them being 2D animated during like normal time, and then when they're on stage they're 3D animated, which after a while you kind of get used to that little switch and it doesn't seem as clunky, or maybe like the animators just like got better at animating 3D animation for that. But then in the second and the third seasons, everything is 3D animated. which is like
Weird.
It's really weird. Like, yeah.
So this is the whole franchise.
Yes.
Video games,
Yes.
dance games. Oh,
Yep.
maybe I'll download the iOS dance game.
It's actually like I actually play the dance games all the time. I play the one on my phone like all the time. But I really enjoy rhythm games. Like I really love Persona 5 dancing and Persona 4 dancing. Like I love those games. And like Miku, because there's like a couple Miku games that are rhythm games. But at Anime Expo last year, they had an entire like Bang Dream Girls like guitar setup where you could purchase guitars that the girls use, which is like so cool. Not that like I play guitar or anything, but like to have like Saya's guitar is like kind of really cool.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but
I did not realize until last week that the Persona franchise was actually kind of deep role-playing games. I thought they were all rhythm games.
They are.
Guess that's what I get for only like I don't know anything about it beyond the soundtracks. I listen to the soundtracks all the time.
The soundtracks are amazing. I play those at work sometimes if we don't have like normal music. But yeah, every Persona game is different. And it stems from, and I'm pretty sure, so don't come at me, but the Shin Megami Tensei games are the precursor to the Persona games, and then the Persona games, each Persona game is different. You have a different like role and a different storyline, and yeah, you can really deep dive into each like specific character that's in it. And Persona 5 is like literally like amazing. I love that. I've spent like 80 hours on the PS3 version of it when I had a PS3, and then I got a PS4, and I was like so excited to start it on the PS4, and then like I realized that I spent like 80 hours of my life playing Persona. Just Persona 5, because I also have Persona 4 Golden for my Vita, and I have Persona 4 dancing and Persona 5 dancing. So I play all those all the time. And I was like, oh, I can't like start a whole nother Persona game because that's like going to be more than 80 hours of my life.
I think you could.
I could.
I have
I did
faith
set
in
up
you.
I did set up my PS4 this week, so.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, as far as new anime that I'm watching, I just started this anime called Monthly Girls no Azaki-kun.
Oh yeah. I saw that actually. I did watch that.
Yeah, I watched the first 3 episodes. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember. I might have fallen asleep on the third.
This is the one where the cute little girl has a crush on the bigger guy that draws manga, but he's completely oblivious to her feelings, and
yes,
he
and
kind
hires
of
her on
pulls-
as an assistant.
Yeah.
Oh,
I thought that was really cute and entertaining. Yeah, I was into it. I'm a fan.
yeah, it's another one of those anime that I like started. I've watched the first episode like a few times, but like I just like didn't get into it. But I made the commitment now. I'm 3 episodes deep, you know what I mean? And it's pretty cute, and it's about drawing manga, which like I'm also very much interested in. That's like one of my other like favorite things to watch in anime is like how anime and manga and being a manga artist like happens behind the scenes. Like I really love animes that do that. So I'm excited.
it's the character in Jojo, Stan user who uses his comics to basically what does he do to them?
Well, he when you look at his comics, well, I think there's a little bit of JoJo style confusion about this, because if I remember this correctly, when his stand powers originally introduced, the idea is that you have to, when you look at his comics, then he can kind of reverse look into your mind, right? Then he like opens you up like a book and can read all about you and edit you as if he's editing a manuscript. But as part 4 goes on, you kind of quickly loses that condition that you have to look at as comics to begin with, and he just kind of whips out his stand, and his stand goes and opens you up like a book, and you're knocked unconscious, and he starts reading all about you and changing you and whatnot.
Yeah, he stood out a lot to me for some reason.
But I think the word on the street is that he is the write-in character for Araki himself.
Right. Rohan, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, word on the street.
That's what the streets are telling me. I'm connected.
I don't know those connections.
Yeah, I haven't been watching anything new. I wanted to start Beastars.
And when you start Beastars, it will consume your life, and you will not watch anything until it is finished. I'm going to tell you that right now, because the story is so good. And like, I wasn't keen on the animation really too much at the start, but like over time, like over like the first episode, you kind of like realize like how well everything moves, even when it's like, because it's 3D animated, and how that like really helps you build like personal relationships with the characters.
Right.
It's on Netflix now, right?
Yes, it is.
To continue the Netflix style of 3D animations.
Well, Orange is a lot better than whatever Netflix has decided to do.
Somebody described it as Wes Anderson-esque.
Yeah, it's very much like what's that animated movie? Fox and with that thing.
What?
The fox that
Bambi?
like no, the fox that whistles. That like he clicks his teeth and whistles. What?
Pepe Le Pew?
No, this is like a newer one. This is newer.
Oh, word. Okay.
Fox.
It's
Fox News?
yeah, Fox News.
No, it's very like critically acclaimed. I'm pretty sure.
Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yeah, that one.
Definitely not Fox News.
It is very much like that kind of like style, but
Word.
I feel like a darker story for sure.
Well, maybe that's something we should all watch and talk about.
Oh man, yeah, I would definitely rewatch that one. Oh my god.
I haven't seen it yet either, but I did just sign up for a Netflix account finally, so I could do the Netflix party. You guys up on the Netflix party?
What does that mean?
It's this.
I'm not on the streets.
It's this Netflix add-on where you can have a group chat while everybody's watching the same thing.
Oh hell yeah!
And I've started doing that with my friend Valerie and her boyfriend Jimmy, and we watch trashy movies and group chat about how trashy it all is.
I'm pretty particular about how I watch things, so maybe I would not like that. Like, you can't ask any questions. There could be no talking. We'll just silently hear each other breathing and gasping at good moments.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I would not want to watch something I was emotionally invested in such a format.
Yeah.
But it's fun for, watching that trashy kind of stuff,
Oh hell yeah. We can all watch what's that Japanese reality show? Terrace House. We can all watch Terrace House.
Is it one where he's stuck in a house?
Yeah, it's like Real World, but like Japanese style.
Yeah. Okay.
So like everyone's like really respectful, instead of trashy.
Boring would that be?
Oh, but it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah. So I also finished Stardust Memory, Gundam Stardust Memory.
Yeah, okay.
Which I thought was real good. This is part of my year goal, my 2020 goal of making my way through the entire Gundam franchise. And I thought Stardust Memory was rock solid. I was impressed that right off the bat, immediately we are impressed upon us that Gundams are the number one coolest thing in existence, and there is literally nothing cooler than a Gundam. It's like right in the first episode, everybody's geeking out about giant robots, like, wow, look at the new Gundam, oh my god, and they're going through all the specs and looking at it all starry-eyed, looking at each other all starry-eyed. I'm like, man, you guys are really pushing like these giant machines of war, so cool. And on the one hand, it's true, there is almost nothing cooler than giant robots. But on the other hand, if this is your day-to-day reality, I'm still not that down with the championing of war and these instruments of war as being so glorious and great. Like giant robots are cool because they're not real. Tanks are real and they're not actually that cool when they're like fucking killing people and whatnot. But that's the difference between real life versus an anime show meant to sell products and sell merchandise and shit. Overall, Stardust Memory had me going the whole time. Opening and ending songs are particularly awesome. I'm still listening to the 2 opening songs on a near daily basis. They get me hyped up. I too want to be a man of destiny.
Oh, they're great.
I was kind of thrown off by these random forced plot twists, like when the lieutenant just dies randomly from damage to his Gundam from a battle 5 minutes earlier in the episode that you didn't really register his Gundam took meaningful damage, but suddenly it did, and his Gundam blows up right as he's reading the enemy plans and he's about to tell everybody, a big reveal, and then he just randomly dies, and it's like felt like that was kind of forced. And also the blonde woman and Gato being in a relationship prior to the show, that also felt like very forced and very unexpected in a bad way. Not that I object to that angle of the story. Like I think that is a good plot twist. I just wish that it had been foreshadowed, or there had been something that led us to that point a little bit easier than her coworker just randomly blurting out, "I know you and Gato used to be in a relationship," and then that's supposed to be this giant reveal, and it's like, wait, what? Where did that come from? I question the emotional decision making of some of these people, and so far as when the blonde woman chooses Gato over the main character, I feel bad. I never remember these people's names. Never in my life do I remember the names of these anime characters, besides like one or two characters I like so much. So you have to bear with me as I describe any show because I can't remember anybody's names.
Ko is
Ko, yeah. So Ko, when the blonde woman chooses Gato over Ko, when they're in the climatic moments of the series, and they're in the colony trying to figure out how to stop the colony from dropping on Earth or how to keep it going, and the blonde woman chooses Gato and gives Ko the shaft, but then when Ko sees her again, year or two later, they're back on the same page, and they're clearly like still lovey-dovey for each other, and those feelings are still clearly there. There's a moment where the blonde woman looks unsure, which I think is supposed to be a reference to like, oh, I've done this hurtful thing, but actually it's okay because I still, like Ko. And I don't know, if I were Ko, I would be like, we can be friends, I guess, but I'm not interested in pursuing a relationship with you. I would not be nearly as overjoyed to see this person a little bit after the fact.
Did we need that kind of romance in that show?
Yes.
Kind of ruined it.
It ruined it? I don't think so. I'm there. I like it. That was a big part of what I liked about it. I like love stories, and I like the romantic angle of all this. There were parts of it that, like I said, could have built the blonde woman and Gato a little bit better, and I thought Ko was like suffered a little bit from the will they won't they style of anime romance, but overall I was real pleased with their romantic plot.
Nina Purpleton.
Nina, that's her name. Sorry. Yeah, Nina.
Purpleton?
Purpleton.
Come on, Nina.
Have you watched any of that, Amelia?
Nope. Gundam's one of those things where like there's so much.
There's
How could I ever possibly begin?
need to talk to an expert.
Well, that's how I felt too until I just sat down and said, "This is my year of the Gundam."
I feel like this should be my year to tackle Full Metal Alchemist and JoJo,
Yeah,
because
Those-
neither of those I've seen, and I feel like I should have already. And I have watched the first season of JoJo, but I'm not like connected to that like period in time. So
well, I am ready to rewatch both of these franchises for the umpteenth time with you because
Okay, cool.
those are both near and dear to my heart.
So if we're gonna do all of this, you also have to watch some Moe shit,
Yeah, I agree.
because you have to watch some of it. I feel like I want to do a podcast on the difference between Lucky Star and Nichijou,
Ooh,
because I have strong
interesting.
feelings.
Yeah, Nichijou is way better.
No,
Uh,
no. That's why I want to discuss it.
All right, so that's what. There's an episode right there. We debate Nichijou
Yes.
versus Lucky Star.
Oh,
Because I
man.
didn't even finish Lucky Star.
Oh, shit.
It really
didn't
did
even-
not connect with me.
I didn't even finish Nichijou. I watched the first 3 episodes. I was like, fuck this shit. Ew.
Oh, dude, I thought Nichijou was actually laugh out loud hilarious. I literally laughed watching it at work on my lunch break. So Kaiba.
Ready to talk about it? So Dan, you've seen Kaiba before.
I love Kaiba. I first saw Kaiba when I was a freshman or sophomore in college.
Oh, I'm such a late bloomer.
I have revisited this show many times in my life.
This show is new to me and Jeffrey. We both watched it recently.
Yeah. So Kaiba is the first major work of this guy, Yuasa, who is a director that we all like. He's got a very distinct style of animation and a very distinct kind of emotional atmosphere to a lot of his work. And Kaiba really exemplifies this stuff to a T. We have the very sketched out and fluid and surreal character designs. The animation is very surreal. The color palette is very psychedelic.
I feel like it's like very experimental animation. Like,
Yeah.
just as far as like moving the characters.
So the world of Kaiba is set in this kind of dystopian, far-flung future, another galaxy, whatever, alien planet. And in this future, we have gained the technology to manipulate people's memories and to store people's memories. Everyone gets these artificial bodies with little memory chips, and these memory chips contain their person, and which is basically their memories. And you can remove the chip, remove this person's consciousness and memories, put it into another body. When their bodies get killed, as long as the memory chip is there, they can be brought back to life in another body. They are kind of able to live indefinitely by just moving the memory chip from body to body, and they are able to change their life on from their own perspective by manipulating their memories, right? They can go back through memories and change them to delete the bad memories, add in good memories, swap their memories, swap people in their memories, create different stories for themselves to make themselves feel good. They can create copies of themselves, create copies of all their memories, and have a second version of them to do whatever with. And the story of Kaiba, as we begin the story of Kaiba, we start in an empty room. We're waking up with our main character. We have no idea who this guy is, and he doesn't know who he is either. He's lost all his memories. And he starts on a journey. He gets thrust onto a journey by another character who we're kind of led to trust, but we don't really know who this guy is. We know that he's popular with the people around him. As he walks through the streets, everyone's going, "Oh, Popo, hey Popo, how you doing, man? Great to see you." He's really a a champion of the people. And he whisks our main character onto a luxury liner and says, "Hey, you got to escape this dangerous situation, guy. Get on this spaceship and hit the road, Jack, and don't come back because you can't be here. You're going to get killed." And we don't really know why necessarily. There's a couple different foreshadows and hints at why, but these answers don't come later. Our main character gets on this luxury liner, and the first half of the show, he goes through this episodic journey throughout this solar system where he encounters different people with different problems relating to kind of the class politics and the philosophy of memory manipulation and body transition. This is technology that is really only available to the rich and not always available to the poor. And we're stuck in this very dystopian reality, and we explore it simultaneously with our main character and come to understand this world better as our main character starts to interact with things and slowly regain his memories. Then with the second half of the show, he does regain his memories, and then we're cast into this kind of political adventure / love story, and we are led to this endpoint where our main character is faced with the apocalypse, with an apocalyptic scenario, and has to grapple with his own kind of dark past and his own memories that haunt him and his own emotional scarring in order to, I guess, overcome the apocalyptic scenario that he's confronted with and know how to be able to adequately respond to it to save the human existence. Yeah. So what did you guys think? How much did you love it?
I 1000%. I'm not like, I don't know, like the character designs threw me off for a minute, like in the beginning, but I feel like there's no other way in which he could have told the story without characters that were so like kind of ambiguous. And I feel like it really like helped push the story along, not being caught up with like, I guess like how, not like how the character looks per se, but like, how a character looks, like, I don't know, it's hard to describe. Like, I'm not like worried about, their facial expressions. I'm worried more about their body expressions, which I feel like is like really different.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so my impression of the show is that it was only licensed recently in America, which is it didn't have a big following here, and there was no TV release. If you watched it, it was what, fan subbed?
Yes. Downloaded off a torrent.
Yep.
Based on a recommendation from the Nihon Review, which is like an anime review aggregator. They gave it a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 or something, and I was just kind of going down the list of everything that they had given really high scores to. And Kaiba really stuck with me because of its vibe, and I love I love the love story angle. I love the thematic density. I love how smart it is as a show. I think it says a little bit about a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very like, artistically invigorating, right? Like, I feel like this is truly Yuasa style with the kind of, as you say, these like really wild sketched out character designs and really kind of loopy and trippy animation, very psychedelic color choices. But what really gets me every time is just the overall ambiance and vibe of this like quiet desperation and this kind of melancholic like a melancholic post-apocalyptic dystopian feeling to everything. The music really adds to that as well. I think it's got a really perfect soundtrack the whole way through. It's a very dreamy kind of show, but also it's very immediate and very brutal, and the aesthetics and the vibe really mask the fact that vanilla is just straight up offing dudes left and right. People are getting butchered in every episode, like, because and I think that's a very interesting thematic point of Kaiba, that they have created this memory technology to preserve people's memories, and to allow people to kind of live forever and live indefinitely. You can always bring back your loved ones. You can always shape your life in the way that you want, alter memories to make the kind of existence that pleases you, because life is just so precious and we can't waste it, and so important, and everyone should be able to live this fulfilling life. But actually this technology has created the opposite scenario in Kaiba, that actually life is very cheap. People get killed left and right, and nobody really bats an eye over this, because there's kind of this baseline assumption that, well, who really cares, because as long as your memory chip's okay, then you'll come back eventually, and that's fine. Like, we can just go ahead and waste this dude. Oh, he didn't actually have a memory chip because he's poor. Well, that's really on him for being poor, so fuck that guy anyway. There's a lot of class politic to Kaiba that is very understated in the show, and that also is very appealing to me.
Mm-hmm. I also feel like every character that you meet in Kaiba has something extremely dark that they're living with, no matter what the memories they have changed or decided to keep, which I thought was like really cool.
Vanilla, when he's doing that, the kissy mouth, makes me think of like the old, like 50s, 60s American animation.
I did feel like that. I did feel like the character designs were very much either like old 80s like Japanese animation, or like old like 70s and 80s like the Jetsons like character type.
Yeah.
80s. That's going way back. That's like even back to the 40s.
Really?
Like Steamboat Willie. It was what, like 30s maybe even?
Yeah. I thought it was weird. It was a weird juxtaposition for my brain, because I was like thinking like, okay, yeah, like this is Japanese animation, let's go. And then like I saw character designs that reminded me of like my childhood and like things I watched when I was growing up, and I was just like put through like a little nostalgia trip.
So while we're talking about influences, this is so Evangelion influenced to a T, especially when we get to the apocalypse scenario, where they're kind of facing that the entire human race is going to be swallowed up by this giant plant. And Popo is standing up there like, we should be eaten by this giant plant so we can all return to one. I'm like, where have I heard that language before? I think I kind of remember somebody else telling me we should all return to one as well. Yeah, it's very directly Evangelion sense of apocalypse, which is very appealing to me. I too want to return to everybody being one, because fuck this stupid life.
Not the arbitrary symbolism, Catholic religious symbolism.
Yeah,
which is nice. It just feels like it belongs in its own world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and Popo really is losing it by that point in the story, right? Like when we start the story, he is very on the ball and relatively methodical and practical, and he's very goal oriented. And by the time he reaches the top, he's really lost everything. He lost his mother's memory chip. He has altered the memories of all of his friends so much that they're basically not his friends anymore. And the one person that really believed in him and always supported him, which he never acknowledged, which is a shame, right? That the tall woman that was just organs inside a doll body, was really into him and really looking out for his best interests. And Popo just literally shoves her to the side and knocks her over. And then she comes up and shoots him in the back of the head and is like, you were not the person that I thought you were, and I don't want to follow you anymore. You're not doing the right thing. And yeah, it's, well, I don't know. I mean, it sucks, right? I mean, you'd think that when you make it all the way to the top and you're kind of victorious, that, well, I guess he wasn't really victorious by that point, right? He was still faced with these kind of overwhelming and insurmountable problems, but he had kind of deluded himself into believing that once he reached the Warp's palace, and once he reached the top of the planet, that was it. You know, that he was untouchable from there, and that was the victory point. And there's one specific scene that I think demonstrates this so well, which is the scene where the scene where he knocks that woman out of the way and then grabs his childhood friend and is like, here, come to the window, and he grabs her by the wrist, and her memories have been altered so much she barely even remembers who Popo is, and doesn't remember anything about their childhood friendship. She just only knows Popo as being the grand leader of their organization.
Mm-hmm.
And Popo is really looking for emotional validation and intimacy here, but she can't provide it because he had erased all of these memories, so she's not able to give that. Popo doesn't really care anymore. He's so overwhelmed with this surface level ecstasy of having been victorious, grabs her by the wrist and they're running, and Popo trips on his cape and falls over. He spills on the ground and just turns around and kind of like gives this kind of boyish giggle to the girl. He's like, you know, and his facial expression conveys just this sense of like it's like watching a toddler fall and feel like, hey, look, mommy, you know, I'm so silly. And it is so at odds with the overall tone, and I say this in a good way, it is so at odds with the overall tone of that scene where they're looking at the Kaiba plant ending human existence, and Popo's tripping on his fucking, you know, royal cape and rolling around on the ground like a fucking child. And it is really grotesque, and it is emotionally grotesque. And I too would have shot that little shit in the back of the head at that point, right?
Oh yeah,
like,
for sure, absolutely.
Totally feel that. I
probably would have tried to do it earlier. He was drunk with power at that point. You know, it's like with all of the power that he had, he used it in the wrong way, and it bit him in the ass.
Yeah. I was thinking also of Metropolis, like with character design wise.
Metropolis.
Yeah, and the character he's in red. I think his name is Red, and he starts killing people with a gun, the 45 or whatever, and he's just doesn't care. He's like got a lust for power, a lust for blood, and he's just fucking people up left and right.
Yeah.
But eventually, you know, it doesn't get him anywhere. But those shows, I don't know if it's paying homage or not to Astro Boy or whatever, Tezuka. I kind of get that vibe with this one.
Yeah, I do too.
It gets boosted on my list of like top shows that I've seen. Yeah, and there's not really experimental animation like this anymore, is there? Like it's there at least.
Yeah, no, barely. And if it was experimental, we wouldn't hear about it, I feel like.
Right.
Yeah. That's not something that people like, talk about.
Well, maybe that's a good segue into Ping Pong and
his other work.
So
yeah, because Kaiba is a good jumping off point. Like I feel like the rest of the Yuasa works are thematically more
linear.
They're like more plot linear, more thematically straightforward, and you know, kind of steps forward with the animation. You know, whether it's Tatai, you know, all of his works are pretty experimental in that way. They all have this kind of signature psychedelicness and trippiness and sketchiness to them. Ping Pong is definitely that way. Tatami Galaxy is kind of like that. Mind Game, the movie that he did that I literally just watched before we got on this call, also very, very like that, very experimental, very all over the place in animation style and visual aesthetic.
I feel like that one is the closest thing to Kaiba, just because of how he tells that story in the same way that in Kaiba they have a lot of flashbacks. This main character also is having kind of like flash forwards, like if he were to choose this one situation, this is how it would go. So I feel like that one is a lot like Kaiba in that respect. But I also just think that he has like this like ability to represent intangible things with like a very specific animation style that is apparent in all of his work.
Yeah.
And especially apparent in Mind Game.
Yeah, I actually found Mind Game kind of hard to follow. I didn't understand all the character relationships, you know, how like the boss Yakuza, the higher ranking Yakuza guy was actually the boyfriend of the soccer Yakuza guy's mother and all this kind of stuff. I had to read it on the internet to figure that out. I understand all that stuff is visually presented to you in Mind Game, but it's just all those sequences are cut so fast and they're so fast paced. I think that's a movie that, would really benefit from repeated viewings. I did really enjoy it. I thought that was a rock solid, good watch.
I actually had watched it previously over at a friend's house a very, very long time ago, and I rewatched it, and I was just blown away again, all over again. I feel like that one is just really great.
Yeah.
I mean, all of his work is really good.
And to bring this back to our initial discussion, all of this stuff is so categorically different than Aizoken, right?
Yes.
And Aizoken is so much more straightforward.
Well, to be fair, I feel like a lot like Aizoken and Ride Your Wave and Devilman Crybaby are kind of all in that same like boat where he's kind of progressed into the more like newer style of anime, but like is still kind of retaining his older like visual representation. It's just in Aizoken, I feel like his way of bringing that kind of animation to the table is through animating a fantasy, because it is something intangible. So he has the creative like experimentation to do that in that series. Same thing with Ride Your Wave. Ride Your Wave is a little bit more like probably the most linear story I've seen from him, where this girl has moved back to her childhood town to go to college because she wanted to be closer to the sea so that she could surf. And that was like the thing that she liked. She liked riding waves. And she meets this firefighter who they fall in love. And throughout the entire movie, they're getting closer and closer to each other. But I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen it, or for you guys, because I'm sure you guys haven't seen it. But it is so good in the storytelling aspect, but it's definitely not visually as like complex as his older work.
Oh, sorry, Geoff.
I haven't seen it, but as far as the spoiler goes, I've heard that the spoiler is essentially the movie. Like
it is. I can't say it. Yeah, I can't say it. Like, and also it's like probably up there with like one of the saddest things I've ever watched in my entire life.
Oh shit, really?
Yeah. Like,
now I really want to watch it.
People say that Anohana was like the saddest anime. People say that Your Lie in April was the saddest anime. I haven't seen Your Lie in April, so I can't comment on that. But like, it's up there with like, who'd I write down? A Silent Voice.
Yeah, that fucked me up.
Yep. Yeah. And it's a kind of, I feel like if you're a person that likes Your Name and Weathering with You, and A Silent Voice and all the newer anime movies that are coming out, this is absolutely 1000% better than any of those.
What?
Like
what?
hands down. Like I cannot
I'm gonna watch this movie and we're gonna see if it's actually better than Your Name, because I ride hard for Your Name. I'm a big believer in Your Name.
I actually really like Your Name, but I really think this surpasses it in every sense of surpassing it.
I'm gonna watch that this week, and I'm gonna hold you to this. Your Name fucked me up, man. I was fucking bawling in the theater.
Oh my gosh! Like literally, I was bawling for like the last hour of the movie. Like this,
can't wait.
It's so like he sets up the character so well.
All right, that's cool. And as we talk about the saddest anime, Anohana definitely tugged at my heartstrings the first time I saw it when I was in like college or grad school or something. But I rewatched it late last year, and it was good. It still is good. It did not seem overly depressing to me, or I mean it is, but like it didn't hit me as hard as it did the first time around. Your Lie in April definitely hits me hard every time. I've seen that twice as well, and I'm a fan of this show.
Maybe I should watch that one.
I think you would like it, but still, there's One Piece and Legends of the Galactic Heroes that is just like every time I watch this shit, I'm dying inside. I'm like,
I can't think of
becoming dehydrated from the manly tears streaming down my face.
I was like, maybe I'm gonna have to put ice on my face today for the rest of the day because of how hard I cried at this movie. And the only thing I've ever cried really hard at for anime is Steins Gate, the newest season of Steins Gate.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, Steins Gate fucks me up every time, but like the newest season of Steins Gate, like kind of wrapped up the
Really?
series.
Steins Gate Zero? I had heard that wasn't actually that good.
I don't know who those people are, but they can eat it.
Really? Okay.
It was good. I thought it was good. It was the story that I had been looking for in Steins Gate. It was the wrap up that I was looking for. This is the story that I wanted.
Hell yeah.
Really, the Fireflies had me crying.
Yeah, everyone gets fucked up by that one. That one's like a classic. If you need to cry, watch that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you my little anecdote about Grave of the Fireflies. When I was in Osaka along the way, I went to a Studio Ghibli art exhibit that was production cells and kind of production drawings from all the big Ghibli movies. And a lot of them, for like Princess Mononoke or Laputa Castle in the Sky, Spirited Away, they, for one production cell, they would make these huge pieces. It would be like way outside just the page itself, and it was really just exploding with life, and everything was really colorful and really bombastic and really full and busy. And it was clear, it was like, we're going to draw this giant like practically foot by foot 12-inch by 12-inch square of image just for an 8.5 by 11 page, and Grave of the Fireflies stood in stark contrast to the rest of these movies, and it had tons of negative space and really minimal drawing and aesthetic. It was not nearly as busy or as vibrant as the other ones. It was much more subdued and toned down, even in these early stage production drawings. And it really captured the feeling of that movie and how different it feels from a lot of the popular Ghibli movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that minimalist style it's in a lot of Yuasa's works, even though it's abstract and surreal. Everything's flat. It's very flat and sort of two-dimensional,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's got to be obviously a conscious decision.
It's a style.
Yeah. But and that too is the fact. How many of these shows and movies did he make are actually all of his creations are not adaptations? Kind of Ping Pong is adaptation. Crybaby.
That's an adaptation, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that, but I feel like being a director on those things lends itself to having the end all be all say of like how the series or like movie like pans out. Like he is the one that is saying, do this and do that, and this is how I want this scene set up, and this is how I want it animated. So I feel like being a being a director on those things is like almost being like his,
Yeah.
you know.
I do want to go back to something that you said, Amelia, that you would place Devilman Crybaby next to Aizoken and what was the movie we were talking about?
Ride Your Wave.
Ride Your Wave next to Aizoken and Ride Your Wave as being a more modern sense of, or I guess a more stereotypically modern sense of anime in comparison to his earlier works. But I actually think Devilman Crybaby is much closer to Kaiba than it is to Aizoken. I think the sketched out animation style is very Kaiba, and also just this like, you know, the sense of apocalypse, sense of this like suppressed melancholy that permeates through everything is very Kaiba like, in my opinion.
I feel that, but the character designs as far as like Devilman Crybaby and Ride Your Wave are pretty similar. They aren't very similar to Aizoken, but the story in Aizoken is linear in a sense of the way the story is linear in Devilman Crybaby and Ride Your Wave.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
In episode 4 of Kaiba, you remember where the two brothers, the two twins, find the treasure box?
Yeah.
And they're so focused on what's in front of them that they lose track of what's around them. And they find that box and they're like, oh shit. And they dive for it, right? There's two pictures in there of their family, and they go, oh, it's just a bunch of junk. And there's two photos or a couple photos of their family and mom and dad, and it's like they completely missed the point.
Oh man, yeah.
And that parallel, that I'm just thinking of Devilman Crybaby, right? And how Akira is just left alone, and he's power hungry, and he loves these characters. At the end, he realizes that, and it's too late; they're gone, right?
Yeah.
But I thought that, like what you said before, thematically, maybe that doesn't translate or doesn't really end up in Aizoken, from what we can tell, right? So far. But I wonder if that's because it's written out, or that's actually in the manga of Aizoken.
I don't know. Is Aizoken an ongoing manga?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
The art style is very similar. They kept a lot of the original look.
Yeah, it has 5 volumes.
5 volumes.
Yeah. I can't tell if it's ongoing still.
Oh, there's a live action adaptation coming out in May.
I mean, nobody likes those, but I love them so much. I think they're so weird and good at the same time. Like weirdly good and like a guilty pleasure of mine. Like the Nana live actions. Oh my god. Like,
I think a lot of this topic hinges on how much these stories rely on animation to tell their story. Nana comes across well as a live action movie because it really doesn't hinge on animation to communicate its thoughts and feelings. It's a story that could be replicated by real people doing real things. That's different than like Full Metal Alchemist, for example.
Or Kaiba even. Can you imagine a live action Kaiba?
Yeah, there's no way you can tell this kind of story in a live action setting. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
I question, I guess in theory, Aizoken shouldn't work because it's too fantastical, and the nature of the animation does a very good job of differentiating kind of what is quote unquote real life and what is quote unquote fantasy life, because you see a difference in animation and art style when they're going through their daily lives as students versus when they go on these tangents into their creative minds where they're interacting with all these different things. There's a meaningful and obvious difference, you know, between how these scenes look and feel and operate. I am not sure that that could be tastefully replicated with a live action version, but Aizoken doesn't go off the deep end with these tangents. Like the things that are, you know, kind of tangented in Aizoken, like the girl fighting the tank or the Kappa aliens versus the human beings, and they're flying around in spaceships. And these are things that have been done in live action movies and look great. So feasibly, they could pull this off and have it look pretty good if they had the budget for it, you know, budget for good special effects and whatnot. So, you know, I don't think it's a bad idea out the gate in comparison to other live action versions.
It's because it's grounded. It is grounded more in reality, even though sequences are, you know, abstract, surreal, whatever.
Yeah.
I could see these characters coming to life.
Yeah, and as you say, Amelia, that's categorically different than something like Kaiba or even like Devilman Crybaby, which there is no way to tell these stories in a live action setting. And as you phrase it this way, Geoff, that these things are grounded in reality. I mean, on the one hand, that's true. Kaiba, you know, Kaiba, for example, clearly not grounded in reality. You know, it's not taking place on Earth. It doesn't necessarily have our same laws of physics or anything like that. You know, but it is grounded in real human emotion.
It is.
Know?
It is.
Like it feels
real. It feels
real to me in a way because of, I don't know, like how nuanced these people's experiences are. Like, you know, don't we all know what it's like to live in a, you know, this classist dystopian post-capitalist reality, you know?
I will say, Yuasa is very good at animating club scenes, like in Kaiba and in Devilman Crybaby and in Mind
Yeah,
Game.
that's true. When they go to the party planet and they have the guy, the huge muscular guy with like, he's got 6 arms with 6 different girls, and he's like, you too could have a big muscular body like this on the party planet, bro. Yeah.
He is so good at animating those like dark atmospheres and music, and it's good.
And I also think that Kaiba is surprisingly good at being self-consistent within its own world. And one little detail that I've always liked is that they introduce Patch, and I guess Patch is the dog, and then there's another guy, the cat guy, that's the body creator, and they make a big point about how the cat guy is this huge celebrity and everybody's going nuts for his bodies, and he's pumping out bodies at a feverish pace, and he's at the cutting edge of fashion and culture. And the head of the factory says, yeah, we even made little toys of his dog Patch, and they sold like hotcakes. You know, that was crazy popular. Then, you know, 5 episodes later, we see a flashback of Nero in her childhood, and she has the little Patch doll. You know, she's got the little stuffed Patch. I always like that little tidbit. I also like the story of crazy cat designer guy. It was very like, I fucking hate the memory system, and I'm gonna design the most useless bullshit, ugly ass bodies, and I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna make people's lives supremely inconvenienced by forcing them into these crappy bodies that nobody will like. You know, just watch me sabotage society by making this tasteless bullshit bodies. But in the end, his art is completely I don't know, like it's not like he's selling out because he's not aware that he's so popular, and he's not aware that he's actually rich. It's other people that handle all his finances for him. But yeah, his warfare has been, what's the word I'm looking for when the corporations take over your stuff? People always talk about how commodify. Maybe that's what I mean. They commodify.
Like in Carol and Tuesday.
Oh, I haven't seen that one. But yeah, Pat, Cat Guy is totally unaware that his entire task, his entire goal has been commodified by a giant corporation, and that he's actually feeding into the very, capitalist system that he hates so much. He's completely unaware that actually this stuff is trendy and is benefiting, the guy that runs the factory. And nobody actually thinks this stuff is sabotaging their modern lives. It literally is their modern lives. It's the apex of their modern lives. And that's real, right? Like that happens all the time with underground culture, that everything, all rebellion gets commodified in the end. Like it starts as a rebellion, but the more successful that rebellion is, the more, the larger quantity of people that buy into it and believe in it, then it starts to gain traction and momentum, and people see that there's money to be made, and then it all kind of tumbles downhill.
Mm-hmm.
And the wealthy are the ones who have the money to buy these bodies, right?
Yeah.
Modification.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree that. So in that sense, it's scarily realistic, but whereas Azaken is believable in the sense of like it's tangible in a way.
Yeah.
I think Kaiba that's what makes good artwork, right? That's what makes a good piece of art. Where a lot of anime is not really art, right? I mean, but I think the show is closer to reaching that definition.
I feel like Aizuken is still more artful than a lot of anime that are airing.
Yeah, I agree.
Visually.
Mm-hmm.
But I think thematically too, that Aizuken tells a really good story about people that are passionate about their craft and are just taking their first steps into bringing their passion to a practical endpoint.
Thing, yeah.
Yeah, into a tangible product. Now, when I watch Aizuken, I feel like that the emotion and the journey is not so far removed from like when I was in high school playing in crappy bands, when I made my first record,
At least the question, does art have to mean anything? Right? Like, does it have to have substance?
Because clearly the guy who's making these bodies, who doesn't know that they're being revered in such high regard, he's making them for a specific purpose that's completely opposite of what's actually happening. So is it art?
Well, my personal take on this stuff is, yes, it is definitely art, and it's all art. It's all human expression, whether it has some deeper meaning or not. I think School Days is a fine piece of art. That's a wonderful, great piece of art right there, and it doesn't have any deeper meaning, and is kind of stand opposed to having any deeper meaning. There's nothing really to gain from that, from some like philosophical or thematic standpoint, or even an emotional standpoint. But it's still, it's still an expression. It's still, an expression of the human experience in a certain way. And as we think of like Fist of the North Star, that's a great piece of art, and not really because it's, some emotionally in-depth thing, but I think it's more than just entertainment, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Do you feel like Aizuken is more than entertainment?
Yes.
I agree as well.
I just feel like it could be a teaching tool.
What?
A teaching tool.
Mm.
I could imagine showing it to a classroom be like, these are the basic steps, or like breaking it down.
Could you do this? If you can't, leave my class. Do you have the dedication? I don't think you do. Oh, I have a question for everyone.
Yeah.
As we're talking about Kaiba and creating your own memories, would you change your memories if you could? Or your body? Would you just haphazardly switch them out?
Would I change my body? Yes. I would like to get rid of my man boobs and my katakuri fat chin. And no matter how much I exercise, these things just never seem to go away in the way that I want.
And what about your memories?
Well,
because in Kaiba, it's a luxury. It's an item that people with money can obtain.
yeah. Would I change my memories? I mean, probably not, because it seems a little inauthentic for the way that I want to live my life.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly there's plenty of memories that I wish I could remove. But is there value in removing them? I'm not so sure. Because it's these memories that play into, are a part of who I am today.
Mm-hmm.
And I like who I am today, so I don't necessarily want to change that.
Same.
What about you, Geoff?
Well, memories, they're not very reliable, are they? I think for a lot of us, we make up our own memories. They have happened or have happened, or we embellish on them. So your perspective is different from someone else's perspective, right? So maybe in that sense, I would change it. Like if I could have someone else's perspective and change like from their eyes, and maybe that would make me a better person. I don't know.
I understand what you mean.
I can't say if I would change my memories.
Yeah, that's a hard question because we don't really think about that
Mm-hmm.
daily basis. Our bodies, on the other hand,
Bodies, fuck this body. Give me a new body. Give me a new body. I'm ready. Give me Chronico's body. I'll live like Chronico for the rest of my life. With them low waist jeans and them cute pink boots.
Mm-hmm. Chronico's boots.
Yes, please give me your boots.
I kind of feel like that's the most notorious episode of Kaiba. Like that's the single episode that everyone keeps going back to. That's a real heartbreaker.
I mean, that is like I cried, so.
I feel you.
Pretty iconic. I feel like I can really feel the want to be wanted and to think that, everything is good and your family's doing all that they can for you. And then like to have that not happen, but like not be able to have that realized is like kind of crazy.
Yeah. And as we think about changing our memories, that's the big dynamic there, right? That the mom is constantly changing her memories to erase all the bad parts. But still her body kind of retains this information, right? Even if she's not conscious of it when she's asleep, she's still tossing and turning and kind of feverish and clearly has a lot going on subconsciously.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it says a lot about the way the story progresses with people, and they kind of hint at the bodies like keeping a little bit of the memories or a little bit of like the desires of the person that had them. So I feel like that's pretty indicative of I don't remember what I was about to say.
Yeah, but I understand what you mean. I know what you're getting at.
Yeah. Like which body is original at that point? Like
that's the hard part. Right?
Like is any body original? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and this plays out in a certain way with warp specifically. That, because there's countless warps, warp keeps getting cloned over and over again because it's only one. I think they said it was one in every 2,000 warps has the specific genetic characteristics that are needed to be, warp, king of existence. And so they keep, pumping out different copies of warp that all have the same memories, but they know that they're not the correct warp. Thus, they know that they're going to get killed off eventually. They know that they're just a temporary warp and their existence is going to end eventually. But then, yeah, the warps that get discarded, if they don't get killed off and they manage to escape, then they've all rallied together and joined each other, and they're like, "Hey, you're warp too, and you're also a warp. So let's all hang out, and if we combine forces, eventually we can maintain the power that we have, and eventually we'll make our way back to the palace and regain all the power that we used to have." And yeah, like what is the what is the meaning of being the original warp? Or like when you have countless copies of yourself, do they have value? I mean, yes, I guess, because they're each independent existences that ought to be respected. But the universe of Kaiba certainly doesn't respect them very much. They're kind of seen as being transitory and temporary, and to be discarded when their usefulness is up.
Like Rei and Ayami from
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Disposable.
I feel like there was something else I was going to say about Kaiba, but it has exited my mind.
There's a lot to say about that show, isn't there? We could do.
Well, it's a show that has a little bit to say about a lot of different things, and the other Yuasa shows I think are much more focused.
Mhm.
That's the word I was looking for earlier. They are much more thematically focused. Tatami Galaxy is really zeroed in on this Buddhist sense of living your best life, and Ping Pong is really thematically zeroed in on kind of what it means to be the best and what it means to sacrifice in for your craft. And Kaiba spends a lot of time meandering through a lot of different topics that we've touched on, right? Talking about classism and greed, talking about sexuality and gender, talking about the kind of ethics and philosophy of memory and the human mind. And yeah, do I think it would benefit from being more focused? No, I think it works really well as it is.
Mhm.
And I like that the first half of the show is just kind of this gentle stroll through the world of Kaiba that touches on a lot of different things. And then at the halfway point, it kind of zeroes in on the political plot line that starts to come up. And it becomes much more plot oriented from there.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's a very well crafted story for that reason. Plays the best of both worlds. And I love the I think the love story of Nero and Kaiba is told very well for being ultimately kind of brief, right? It doesn't have that much screen time, but it's really emotionally impactful and it really resonates with me personally. I think they make the most of kind of the limited time that they have given to developing this character relationship.
Mhm.
You see that Nero is a little bit of an outsider within her organization. And she says that. She explicitly says, I feel like I have no one I can talk to. I feel like I'm an outsider. I feel like I don't fit in here. Then Kaiba mysteriously crash lands, next door. And she's like, so suddenly there's another person that also doesn't fit here and is also an outsider and also is separate. And that's someone that finally I can relate to and open up to and talk to. And I see in a very practical way, it's like, I see how their budding relationship makes a lot of intuitive sense, and how that plays out so well.
Well, because it started from childhood.
Yeah.
Mm.
And what do we think about the wheelchair guy creating separate identities for Nero? Because there's Nero, and then there's Hyo-Hyo as well. Hyo-Hyo being Nero's untouched memories, and her, I guess it's within show logic would say these are Nero's untouched memories before, that the memories currently in Nero is the Nero that has been edited by Popo, and Hyo-Hyo is the unedited Nero. And I think in a larger thematic sense, the idea is that Hyo-Hyo is the Nero that remembers. It's like all of Nero's feelings towards Kaiba personified as this little flying companion. And yeah, Nero is the Nero that never knew Kaiba.
Well, and Hyo-Hyo stays with Kaiba almost the entire time.
Yeah, but then Hyo-Hyo at the end, kind of chooses the wheelchair guy. Because the wheelchair guy does in the end confess his feelings to Nero, and Hyo-Hyo doesn't exactly abandon Kaiba, but like let me see if I can try to explain. It's difficult because it's like two versions of the same person, right? But the Nero goes to the palace to rescue Kaiba and to tell Kaiba, like, look, your mom actually loved you, and your mom has been with you this whole time, and all these dark memories that haunt you, you did have light in your life. It wasn't all darkness. You're not remembering things correctly. You're not understanding things correctly. And Hyo-Hyo Nero stays with the wheelchair guy, and the wheelchair guy confesses to Hyo-Hyo Nero, and Hyo-Hyo Nero doesn't run off to Kaiba. He spent the whole show with Kaiba, but in the end kind of chooses the wheelchair guy, and decides that she really ought to make sure the wheelchair guy is going to be okay, and she does. That's the epilogue, is that Hyo-Hyo kind of manages to swallow up the little memory beads as they're floating up to the sky when wheelchair guy dies, and then she flies back to his apartment and kind of magically reinserts those memory beads back into wheelchair guy's body, which doesn't necessarily make sense, but is clearly what they are trying to communicate.
I actually see that happen. But the wheelchair guy gets a fucking robot body.
Yeah. And
the fact that that was the best part for me, was this reference to Giant Robo. And just old robot shows in general, like shooting the fist off, right?
Yeah.
And it gets down to like the head floating around, which is another reference to me as maybe Gundam, the original Gundam series.
Right.
Or that, the head of I forgot the name of that mobile suit, but it's floating around and shoots a beam out of space to hit the original RX-78. Just like little nuances like that I really enjoyed.
And I guess the rest of Yuasa's work really hasn't been that referential. Like as we discussed Kaiba, we brought up Giant Robo, Gundam, Evangelion, Astro Boy, all sorts of Metropolis, all sorts of past works that he's drawing influence from. But we couldn't really make the same arguments about Tatami Galaxy or Devilman. I mean, Devilman Crybaby, like, it's a little bit different because it's a adaptation of a prior work, as a reimagining of a prior work. But in general, we don't see the same kind of obvious melding of influences. And I think that's got to be just the realities of, like, this is your first effort and you're like just taking all your favorite things and melding them together through your own lens, versus as the years go by and you develop your own style and start to find your own personality.
Well, I gave him a lot of freedom after he did that, right? Surprise.
Yeah.
Leader's like, sorry, dude. That's it for you. No one. Because I wonder how popular it was. Like did it sell stuff? You know what I mean? Like it's just
Well,
merch.
I don't think it was that.
It has a garage kit. There's one garage kit for Chronico.
Okay. Ooh, I want that.
I know it's so good. It looks so good.
I would get it for Nero, but not for Chronico.
No. There's a Chronico, and then there was supposed to be a Warp one that was released, but I haven't seen pictures of that one or if it got released.
Yeah, I haven't seen much in the way of Kaiba merch, or I don't know. I feel like Kaiba, as we've kind of mentioned before, Kaiba is often overshadowed by Devilman Crybaby or Ping Pong or these shows that are kind of more critically acclaimed or they're more fan popular.
Mm-hmm.
But I ride for Kaiba the most.
From all of the ones that I've seen, Kaiba is it. It is it. I mean, Ride Your Wave is really good, but I feel like they're two completely different things.
Yeah, the next time we record one of these, I will have something to say about Ride the Wave. I'm gonna let you know if I think this is, because your name is really something special in my opinion. We're gonna see if that's really as good, or rather, I will see if it's really as good.
I think it's better.
Those big words.
And they have the same kind of like character dynamic as Devilman Crybaby. You've got like the blonde-haired guy versus the dark-haired guy kind of thing.
Word.
But it's good. Get some tissues. Have them handy.
Yeah. For better or for worse, my dad's the same way. My dad also is like very apt to shed tears in a movie, shed tears at TV. And I definitely inherited that from him. I am shedding manly tears at the drop of a dime.
I get made fun of for how emotional I am when I'm watching stuff. Like if it's a happy moment, I'm literally smiling from ear to ear. If it's a sad moment, I'm like bawling.
Yeah, me too.
Everything shows on my face when I'm watching anything.
Yeah, same. But I'm not that way if there's other people around. And that's part of why I really prefer to watch this stuff by myself. Because when I'm by myself, I can really let myself get sucked into the moment all the way. But if there's somebody else there, then it's not really about it's not really about your relationship to this media, to this piece of art, but like the both of you experiencing this art at the same time. There's like a totally different dynamic to it, in my opinion.
Yeah, Steven interrupted me a couple times, and the last time he was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just watching it. It's really good. It's really sad."
Yeah, I think the one that fucked me up the most was me and my ex-girlfriend watching one of the season finale of Grey's Anatomy where they're in a plane crash. And it didn't fucking matter that she was there. I was like curled up in the fetal position on her lap, like bawling my eyes out. Dude, that shit fucked me up, man.
You just get so attached to characters sometimes.
Yeah, I know, dude.
I feel like I'm them. I'm like, damn, I just lost a loved one. Like, what am I gonna do?
For real.
Hey everybody! Thanks for listening to us deep dive into the works of Masaaki Yuasa. On our next episode, we'll take a look at the breakout anime hit Beastars. If you haven't checked it out yet, it is a must-watch and one I'm super excited to talk about. If you enjoyed your time here at the Otaku Host Club, please consider subscribing. You can find us on all of our various social medias at Otaku Host Club. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye!